What's up? I'm here at Red Rock with Jalen James Acosta. Now, he has an amazing story about how he went from the very bottom to creating a successful business and also going on tour around the world with some amazing famous artists. And I thought it'd be cool just to hang out in this beautiful setting since you came down from San Diego and share your story.
Thank you, thank you. First of all, wow, what a beautiful park. Yeah, Red Rock, man. They're rocks.
It's beautiful out here.
It's red and it rocks.
Now, one of the things I wanted you to go through that I thought was the most impressive thing I've heard in a very long time was that story about how you got started and everything.
Right. All right. So, wow. So I guess I have to relive it.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. Well, you know, we all have a story, right? At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. And every single one of us that goes through, you know, issues and problems and whatever, what makes us different than one another is how we react and what we do with the circumstances, right? So at some point I found myself homeless, and it wasn't a matter of well, why is he homeless or this and that. People ask that question all the time.
How long ago was that?
That was back in 2001.
2001, okay.
Yeah, that was ages ago.
Yeah.
So what happened to me at the time, you know, it was really more of you know, circumstances, you know, wrong place, wrong time. Had an incredible job, and that faded away. And of course, you remember 9/11 happened. So at the time, you know, Miami was very much a technology tourist town. You know, not technology, tourist town. So because of that, you know, really there wasn't much to do after I lost my job, and then it was that one moment where I'll never forget that I was like, I had one day left on that motel that I was paying, and I was just like, oh shoot, what's gonna happen next? What's, you know, like, what now? And that moment right there really defined a lot of things for me, you know. I was like, this is one of those moments where I can start doing things and get in trouble to try to get money, or I just stick it out and hopefully something will happen. And so I ended up finding myself homeless, sleeping on a park bench. Don't get it twisted, I called everybody. I called people and friends, and a lot of people were, at the time, most of my friends were away in college and or doing stuff, and so yeah, it was just a tough time. But man, just life has a funny way of showing you the way, you know. I got very lucky and found someone that gave me a job. So,
and that job was at the Bubblegum Shrimp Restaurant, right?
Yeah, that's right. Right. Bubblegum Shrimp. That was a interesting time in my life, you know, because a lot of the folks there, they did not really know what I was going through or whatever. I was really good at, you know, pretending like I was all right. No. People knew that I was going through stuff, but I wasn't too specific about what exactly it is that I was going through. And but the manager was really cool. His name is Rob, so big shout out to Rob if you're watching. Yeah, that, you know, he gave me the job, gave me the opportunity to work there, and I worked my way up. You know, I was washing dishes first and peeling shrimp, you know, doing typical things you do when you start a job. And then eventually he was like, hey, you good for training, you should train to be a waiter, you know, you have a personality. And that helped, obviously, big time. But at the time, you know, I'm sure you guys remember, you know, 9/11, like I said, annihilated a lot of stuff. So there wasn't a lot of people coming to the restaurant, you know. So I got cut many times, you know, and then it was a matter of like, do I go home or do I stay here? What do I, you know? So I just pretty much stayed at the restaurant as much as I could and hung out with the waiters, and a lot of them were musicians, so that helped, you know, to get inspired and stuff. And yeah, it was just a funny time for me.
Well, talk about what happened. So my understanding is you were a very angry waiter.
I was.
You were not like really into self-help. You're not as a cool cat like you are now. Well, what happened was you met up with this girl who saw you walking by one day, and she gave you this book, right?
Right. So you know, it's not that I was an angry waiter. I was just what's the word? I was just disappointed with the world. Mm-hmm. So you know, I was never like mean to. I wasn't I was always kind of like a nice guy naturally, but the problem was that, you know, at the time I was just like going through a lot of emotions. And so one night as I was walking back to the park bench where I was staying at, you know, this girl called me. Hey, she was like, hey, psst, psst, psst. And I'm walking, I mean, I'm talking about this is like 2 or 3 in the morning. So in my mind, I'm thinking, this girl is out of her mind. I got dreads coming out of like, I mean, I literally had dreads, right? Because every day I was twisting my hair like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So it became dreads. I couldn't cut my hair. So anyway, so she calls me over. I go up to her and she says, you know, I just want to say that I see you walk by here every day. And then you never stop. You never talk to your fellow waiters and waitresses and whatever. And sometimes they're here having beer, this and that. You never do that. So why? So then I didn't know what to say. You know, here was a pretty beautiful girl. I didn't know what to say. So I just said, no, I'm good. I'm good. So she said, I want to give you something that someone gave to me. And it made a difference to me. And then she went to the back, and of course when she went to the back I was like a little bit embarrassed because I thought, oh gosh, she knows I'm homeless. Oh nah, you know, whatever. Typical stuff, you know. I call it the committee talking to me, you know, that voice that tells you the negative stuff too, you know. And so I just waited for her. She came back, gave me a book, and that book was Conversations with God. But the ironic thing about the book is that it wasn't really necessarily all about God. It was really more about the law of attraction. And I don't know if I talk enough about that in my social media or whatever, but I probably should. But straight up, that changed my life. That night I went back to the park, and the first miracle happened. And I you know, I never really publicly shared how this really came about or what happened, but I think this might be the first time on tape actually. So I went back to the park bench. Again, I was staying there, and I was staying there for weeks, right? And for the very first time ever, I don't know how this happened, but I sat down at the very spot that I sat down every single day. But for some reason, this time there was an opening in the trees. And through that opening, there was the moon. And it was the full moon, but like the biggest moon I'd ever seen. And the light was just shining down on me. And it was like, and I just said to myself, this has got to be a miracle. Like, what are the odds? I've been sitting here, laying down here in the same spot. It's always been covered. But now all of a sudden this opening was there. The moon was shining down. All of a sudden I had light for my book. And so I started reading this book, and next thing you know, I was just crying and laughing, and all these different emotions were happening. And the very next day I went to work, I was just a different guy. You know, the light came back into me, you know, so that changed pretty much everything, because everybody noticed in the restaurant. Again, I was always a cool dude, nice guy, whatever, quiet, but I was more introverted. I wasn't going to tell people that I was dealing with what I was dealing with, you know. But then that moment changed my life. I began to play instruments again, do the things.
And when you're saying instruments, you're talking about pots and pans?
Yeah, you know. Anytime I had a chance, I go back to the kitchen. You know, of course, when the managers were not around. And so, yeah, sure enough, that changed everything. And then I think it was just a couple of weeks after that Rob, I think it was Rob, gave me a newspaper with some stuff that was circled, and it was for an audition. And I went to that audition, and that turned out to be the world launch of Microsoft Windows XP and the Xbox. And how I got the audition, that's a whole other story.
What's going to that? Like, how did you get the audition?
I mean, so I read, you know, it said actor needed, right? And of course, back then there was no Craigslist. So it was on an actual newspaper. And I called, you know, and I said, hey, you know, I'm calling about the audition or whatever. And the lady right away, she was like, oh, you know what? I'm glad you're calling. You know, we've been looking for a few weeks. Nothing has happened. We haven't found the right person. So, can you speak Spanish? I'm like, yeah, I can speak Spanish. And they're like, oh, yeah. But wait, can you rap in Spanish? And I was like, yes, I can rap in Spanish, you know. And it was like, right then I knew that I had like a chance, you know. Mm-hmm. And then she said, well, come right now. They're auditioning for this right now.
And this is a listing that you found out about, though, from the people you're working with.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they're like, wow, this guy has got good positive energy. At first, they didn't really like you, and then they started to like you more because you're...
Probably, at this point, I don't know who liked me or who didn't.
Yeah.
But I know that I probably was a little...
But they saw your energy. They said,
Yeah.
this guy's an actor. This guy's got some
Yeah.
Energy about him. Check out this listing, apply for it.
Yeah, I
So
got
you
along
applied.
with all the waiters and waitresses and some of the managers, but yeah, no, it was a wonderful situation, because at that very moment, I saw the listing, I went to the casting, and what I typically never say this is that I ran all the way there, just like Forrest, right? I ran all the way there, and when I got there, I bust through the door. By the way, I had to go 10 flights of steps, because at that time it was like 5 o'clock traffic, everybody getting out of work. So before they closed, I had to get upstairs. So I went upstairs, 10 flights, bust through the door, and I walk in, and the lady's like, oh gosh, she looks at me all crazy looking, all dirty and shit, it's really terrible. But anyway, I walk in, and she says, yeah, just go ahead. Sign in later. So I went in, and when I walked in, there was a panel of people, and I'll never forget it. It was just one of those weird moments where people looking at me like, and I have my what do you call that thing?
The apron?
The apron on. Sorry, I have my apron on, and so that was pretty embarrassing, to say the least. But then the lady was like, go ahead and slate, which is basically a term for, tell us your name, tell us about you, blah, 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 give us your profile. So I did. And then they asked me a question that changed everything. And that was just basically, they said, tell us something interesting about you. And they caught me off guard. At that very moment, I didn't know what to say. So the best I could come up with was, my name is Jalen James Acosta, and I'm homeless. And I'm happy. So they were like, what? And of course, there was a Latin lady like, oh my God, Dios mío. Looking at me all crazy. But I got the casting right then and there. They told me, they asked me, can you rap? And I said yes. And I started freestyling in Spanish. Of course, there was a pretty girl there, and, did my thing, said a few pretty things about the girl. And bottom line is, boom, I got the part. I didn't know what I got, by the way.
Okay.
And then 2 days later, I ended up co-hosting the world launch of Microsoft Windows XP and the Xbox, and DJ Irie was the DJ. So that's how he and I became friends. And I told him, I said, dude, I'm homeless. I just got this casting and I came here. And he was cracking up, He's my boy to this day, and he's done so many things for me, and over the years and stuff. So we're great friends. And yeah, that's how this whole thing began. I went back after doing that major job. They gave me $1,000 in tip, I think it was, and they gave me $5,000, I think was the check, the actual check, but that was a week later. But with the first money, the very next day, I went and got me an apartment with a waitress. I was like, dude, please take me around, this and that, and yeah, I went and got a job, and got an apartment. And no, my homegirl was the one that took me, and eventually her and I began dating. So long story, but yeah, no, it's
Now the other thing is they gave you an Xbox, right?
yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They gave me an Xbox. It hadn't come out yet, and of course a couple of games. And the best part about it is that the first game that I actually got to really play was the MTV Music Generator, which was ironically a software to make beats. What are the odds that I'm gonna get to play with that first? And Halo, of course. And so I played with that, and eventually months later, I made a beat that was presented to a Grammy Award-winning producer, and that led to the group Toque de Queda, which I ended up becoming a part of. And anyway, so it evolved from there. But bottom line is that changing the mindset, just that one thing that changed my mindset, changed my life. So years later, I've been able to now educate a new generation of some of the artists, of some of the athletes that I work with, by, really injecting that mindset into their game.
Well, yeah, because after you did the beats for your future associates, you ended up them touring around the world.
Yeah.
And then having enough money to invest in businesses all over Miami.
I did. I invested in to the point that I was broke again. But but no, I got into technology. That worked out in a way. Ironically, worked out later. At the time, remember the economy crashed eventually, so I had to recoup from that. But I did invest in one amazing thing that to this day is probably the best investment that I've ever done, which is I invested in myself, and I bought equipment. I bought, I got myself a steady situation where I could learn how to learn, and that was the key to it, learning how to learn, learning how to really find the how to of things, right? Because we usually make excuses, like, oh, well, I don't have enough money to do this, or I don't have enough of people to help me out doing that, or whatever. And the whole idea behind this was, well, no, I got to do it, and then I'll build a team after people see what I'm capable of doing. And so, yeah, movies, commercials, all kinds of things follow after that. And of course, I worked with many athletes and many different things. And of course, all of that led to now. But had not been for those situations, I don't think I've ever would have, I would have stayed in my comfort zone and would have just continued to do what I was doing before,
Well, now you have a company called World Artists United, where you're managing athletes, professional athletes,
Yeah,
and
we
also
manage their
professional
brands.
musicians.
Yeah.
Got clients like Odell Beckham Odom and Karina Passion.
Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, he and the family, his family, they've given us an opportunity to work with them. Uh, we got many other athletes that we work with. Big shout out to my partner, Louis. We work with, tons of people, from Richard Sherman to Julio Jones, you name it. We got a night. By the way, I'm not leaving the rest of you out. It's just not enough time in this interview to mention you all. And then Karina Pasian, who's a Grammy-nominated artist that I met at 12. She was 12 years old when I first met her. Eventually, 13, 14, whatever, I kept in touch, and her father became like a mentor to me. And then the guy that signed her to Def Jam at the time, was my mentor and my first investor to my tech company. My friend Mike and I started a tech company at the time, and Shakir Stewart was the guy who was instrumental in getting us in front of the right people back then. And unfortunately, back in 2008, under horrible circumstances, he took his own life, or so they say. I don't know, who knows. But yeah, he did. Um, and it was just an unfortunate situation to have someone like him, with so much promise and so many things happening, pass away. And of course, that affected Karina and her career. It affected me and everybody who's ever met Shakir at that point, because Shakir is a living legend, really. Like, at the time, he was a living legend. Everybody knew him in the game and in the music industry. Everybody was learning from him. He was opening a lot of doors. Um, and unfortunately, that happened. But we we learned from the things he taught us. We learned from the experiences we had, and eventually it took me many years for me to get to Karina, for Karina to want to work with us. Not because she didn't want to work with us, just simply because we needed to be in a position that we could really do the things that she deserved as an artist. Uh, Being nominated at 16 years old to a Grammy is a huge deal. So how to follow that up, needed to, it took time. It took time for her to learn songwriting. It took time for her to produce songs, and yeah, it took time for me to get to where I am now.
Well, now you have an extensive network.
Yeah.
But you also have skill sets now in social media marketing.
Yeah.
And also video production and the acting and storyboarding of it.
Yeah.
And I've seen your acting and video production skills. It's awesome. And now you're able to apply that to corporations, like you're working with Tuya.
Yeah.
And you're working with various major athletes and artists. And it's kind of
Yeah,
cool to
yeah,
see
yeah.
that progression from, I don't know, how long were you homeless for?
Oh shoot, months. I
Yeah,
don't
so you're
remember.
being homeless for several months
Yeah.
to now having a history of generating millions of dollars of revenue over your career and helping really successful people. It's kind of
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. I mean, those companies are and continuing to are making and are continuing to make millions of dollars. And hey, I'm just grateful that I get the opportunity to really work with these brands. And even though I'm bringing my skill set and my knowledge and my experience, I'm also learning a
Mhm.
lot. From the process. I get to work with incredible people in those brands. I worked with Remy Martin. I worked with Sony. I worked with many different folks. And so um, obviously the teams you meet when you go and meet with these brands, they're like incredible folks. So, and of course the teams around the athletes, right? Uh, it's pun intended, by the way, athletes, teams, right? So all these folks that I get to collaborate with and work with, I'm a sponge. I'm still learning every single day, and some may say that I'm a master at what I do, but really what I'm a master of is really finding unique talent. I think that that's really my biggest asset, that I'm able to see the talent in other people, and um, and I don't have a hate bone. I cannot hate on somebody else, So when I see someone that has talent, or that has the ability to do something that I can't do, or they can do what I can do but do it better, I'm like, yes, please, can I work with you? Can I learn from you? Let's do some stuff together. So
Well, you coming from a position that was low to something that's high, you could see the potential of people,
yeah.
potential that other people might not be able to find.
Yeah, you know what? That's it's funny that you mentioned that. I think that's probably the key. The key is that I've been through every layer of society, right? And I've been able to experience life in those different layers of society, right? From the poorest of the poorest to being around some of the wealthiest folks in the planet, and some of the biggest celebrities, biggest athletes, and whatever. And so I think that the beauty of being around these folks is, again, the vast uh, knowledge that every single person brings in every layer of the societies. So I'm like a chameleon. I think I can blend in, with the different parts, of the industry. So I enjoy it. I have a great time, and I get to speak to guys like you who are extremely successful, and I get to pick your brain. So, I mean, what else? This is crazy. Honestly, it's surreal. Every single day, I'm like, whoa, this is surreal. Some of the things we're doing now with the Harvard Music Entrepreneur Conference, um, MEC, we call it WOW MEC now.
WAMAC,
Yeah,
World Artists
yeah.
United Music Entrepreneur
Yeah,
Conference.
yeah, we call it WAMEC. So that's an incredible event. I'd love to invite you there too as
Sure,
well. Yeah.
that'd be cool.
So it's happening in September, and we have some of the biggest folks in the industry. I'd rather have Rachel tell you about it because she's like a pro. But we're doing some incredible stuff at Harvard, and hopefully we're going to duplicate this and go to different schools, different Ivy League schools and stuff. And the idea is that we may be doing it there now, but this is for the people. This is for the knowledge is for the people. So that's the idea. Let's. I always taught my students. I don't know if you know that I was teaching also a couple of years ago. I was teaching in Miami
Okay.
at
What subject?
Urging Inc. What's up? I was teaching film. I was part of the FACE program, which is Film, Arts and Culture, Coding, and Entrepreneurship. And it's a wonderful program that was started there in Reading, Overtown, in the heart of Overtown.
Awesome.
And so that whole experience taught me a whole lot. And one of the things that I always taught my students was like, your network is your net worth. All right. And also, don't wait till later. This is the time right now. But the main thing that I always want to teach people, even you if you're watching, is this: it is attainable, it is doable. You know, all these different things are doable, and they are attainable. And if you don't know where to find the answer, then you're not looking hard enough. But the truth is, you got Google, and you got YouTube University. So you can learn anything nowadays. So yeah. So
Awesome, bro.
yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for sharing your story. I think it's a very inspirational story,
Thank you, thank you.
and it's also a transformational experience. I think a lot of people could relate through because it's a story from the underdog going to the top, you know, and everyone wants to know how people have done it.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Appreciate your time. I feel like I'm still on my way up. And anybody that wants to join the journey, join the movement, worldartistsunited.com. Come and join us. We're doing amazing things. We'll be performing at Cannes next, the Cannes Film Festival. Karina will be there. I'll be directing a documentary there as well. And then we'll be in Italy, Spain, Dominican Republic for the opening of Absolute New York. So big shout out to you guys. And then back to Europe, to England and a few other countries. So big shout out to everybody. Big shout out to the Wild team. I appreciate, everything everybody does. So thank
Awesome,
you,
bro.
brother.
Cheers.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I'm gonna go fly my drone now.